graffiti is the act of writing on a surface. It's just the act of writing on a surface. It has no other context. If you mix graffiti and you add the word vandalism, now you have a different context. You have writing on a surface, the act of writing on a surface, and then you have the act of doing something without permission or damaging something or rendering it not useful, right? So if you say graffiti vandalism, or if you say vandalism under the form of graffiti, there's a whole different context. Street art is interesting because that's a term that comes and appears in about the early 2000s.
Right.
Prior to that, we spoke about graffiti. New
Right.
York City graffiti, LA graffiti, graffiti. So graffiti was always paired with the notion of vandalism. Now, art in the form of vandalism has never been a discussion. If you go into anthropology and you start looking at cave writings, if you start looking at the Romans when, in Pompeii, and there was graffiti on the walls of Pompeii, and that's very well documented. The Berlin Wall was covered in graffiti. On one side, there was a political context. On the other side, there was a very liberal, free context. And one side was all political slogans, like free this, whatever, or against this, communism. The other side would have been graffiti like you would see it here. It would have been just, lettering names or something like that. It didn't necessarily have the same political context. There would be also political stuff on there. Graffiti is nothing new. That's the point of what I'm saying. It's nothing new. The act of writing on walls is nothing new. You have, Zilon, who's, late 1970s, early 1980s punk rock scene. The majority of the people who do graffiti are middle class or upper class white kids who are university students.
That's interesting.
These are not delinquents. These are people who are extremely intelligent, because you have to be intelligent to get away with it and be prolific. If not, you're not going to last very long. The idea wasn't to go out and hurt people or to damage property. It was to be, how do you do this while being intelligent about it? And that's what helps build a career, is that there's a mythology behind it. It's not just random, and it's not ignorant, and it's not arrogant. It's, there's definitely ego involved in it. There's definitely insecurity. There's definitely, you want to attract attention. You have to allow people to go through a process. Again, not without consequence, not without ownership for their actions. But it doesn't mean that they're bad people, and it doesn't mean that they can't do something positive, and it doesn't mean that they won't. When I go into the metro and I want to get on the metro, the last thing I want to do is necessarily see this giant yellow bloody metro car, but because somebody paid $250,000 or $100,000 for it, it's okay now to subject me to this advertising that I didn't ask for in my public space, but it's justified because it helps cover costs of expenses to maintain or things. So there's a justification. If I walk into the metro and all these plexiglass ads are on the walls, and it says, Nike or this festival or this movie or this thing, it's like, geez, or billboards on the highway. I'm driving and it's like I'm trying to pay attention to the road and the car in front of me, and somebody's trying to sell me a Tesla, or an IPA, the new IPA. So, if you look at that, the city is riddled with visual pollution, but it's okay because somebody paid for it. The dialogue that we're having about graffiti today, or vandalism, has not evolved greatly in the last 30 years that I've been talking about it. We're asking the same questions, we're proposing the same solutions, we're still approaching it the same way, and still portraying the individuals doing it in the same light. And the thing is, we know that it's not what it is anymore, but the questions are still the same.